I use options as a supplement to a good portfolio, right? They're a way to add to your portfolio. They should not be your portfolio unless you're really well versed in options. But even still, like if you make one wrong call, you go broke. You lose everything you put into that option, whether it be a put or a call, right? So the fact that they've got 80% of their total liabilities in options, holy crap, man, that's huge.
That is humongous.
That's monumental. That means 32.3 billion of the total 57 billion short positions coming from options. Man, I can't even fathom that. I can't fathom that. That's insane.
So catch everyone up right here. I have the too long didn't read. It says Citadel Securities has been fined 58 times for violating FINRA, Reg Show, and SEC regulations. Several instances are documented as willful naked shorting. In December 2020, they reported an increase in their short position of 127% year over year, and they're calling BS on their shenanigans. What is, for the smooth brains out there, is naked shorting legal sometimes, and what is willful naked shorting?
So naked shorting can be legal sometimes. It depends. So the origin of naked shorting is actually not, malicious in the least bit. The reason for that being, it's kind of a three-step process. So you've got brokers which hold shares. They hold, X amount of shares, however many that might be. They're the lender. And then next you've got hedge funds. Hedge funds are the person getting lended to. Let's say that you've got Citadel over here requesting, hey, I want 100 million shares to do with whatever I want. Well, the broker says, okay, here's your 100 million shares. You can do with them what you want, sell them into the market, hold them. I don't really care. You're going to pay X amount of interest on these. And then the short positions will sell them into the market, which is step 3, right? So step 1, the broker lends them out. Step 2, shorter sells them into the market. Step 3, they eventually buy them back from the market. Well, if let's say the lender doesn't have the actual tangible shares, they'll write them up in IOU or a synthetic share until the other lenders that they have lent shares out to return shares, and then they will send out the actual tangible shares and replace those IOUs. That's not malicious in the least bit. That's the origin of naked shorting. It's meant to be like a 1 or 2 day spot, right? Because, hey, I know that I've got, $50,000 coming in, so I'm going to use my credit card to buy $20,000 of X because I know I've got $50,000 coming in 2 days. Well, now let's say that you've got, you instead just buy $20,000 and you're not going to get paid for 3 months. Well, that was a pretty stupid financial decision. I mean, that doesn't make any sense at all. And that's the origin of malicious naked shorting is, hey, I know that I'm not going to have the tangible shares to be able to spot these IOUs. But even though I know that, I am still going to send out 100 million shares of synthetic shares, IOUs, to the market, which does a plethora of terrible, terrible things to the supply and demand chain. I mean, it's basic knowledge. Increase in supply, decrease in demand. It's too simple, and that's what's happening. That's naked shorting. That's not legal. That's illegal.
So that is illegal. That's the willful naked shorting, like malicious naked shorting. And what's important is Trey just mentioned how much money there actually is right now, right? So there's like Citadel making the rules and then saying, now that I've made the rules, I would like to benefit from those rules. 380 trillion. What is that? $billion. So they have almost 300 million of that, 3 billion of that split into options, calls, and puts, while 80 billion of that is allocated to actual physical shares.
80 million billion.
80 million billion. I'm just not used to seeing all those commas. So yeah, this is insanity. So what exactly does this mean for next week? Are they going to see some action in the congressional hearing on 17th? Is this going to be brought up?
I would be surprised if it's not. I mean, this is common knowledge. So anybody could Google the note to statement of financial condition for Citadel Securities LLC, and they could find exactly what their breakdown is in terms of their liabilities and their assets. So this is public knowledge to anybody. It just hasn't been talked about until just recently. All this information is available to us, but thank God for things like Reddit and Discord. We can talk about these things and bring it to the limelight. A lot of times there's sketchy things that happen, but nobody talks about it, so it just goes under the radar. Well, now you got people that know Citadel, other hedge funds, Melvin Capital, I'd say even JP Morgan. They're doing these sketchy things, and people are like, hey, that's not right. What are you doing? What are you doing? You're gambling right now. And I think it will affect the stock price. In the least bit, if it doesn't next week, I don't like putting dates on things, man. What I do think is this tells us that we're playing a game. We're playing a game and it's still live ball. It says not a dead freaking cat.
Not a dead cat.
No, it never was. It never was. Dude, I'm telling you. I think if you want an explanation as to what's going on right now, you want proof that it's not a dead cat, look at that 2-week consolidation period for AMC and GameStop. When AMC was trading for 10 straight days at $5.50 to $6.50, they kept doubling down on their short positions. If you looked at that, the short volume on those days was between 10 and 30% of the total market volume that entire period of time. So they weren't done yet. they kept doubling down. And the thing is, that is probably just the actual tangible short shares. That does not take into consideration the options, which we know is 70 to 80% of the total short position based on these spreadsheets that we're reading right now. That's monumental. And that's something that nobody has really even been talking about is, hey, what about these put options? What about futures? Futures can even play into this. You know what I'm saying? It's insane. It's insanity.
So this is kind of like throwing people who are new into the deep end, but being able to read these financial statements. Let's actually look over here. I'm not sure if you can watch the screen here, but we have...
I can see it. It's just lagging a little bit.
Gotcha. We have a highlighted section of the liabilities and members' capital. It's highlighted. It says liabilities, securities sold, not yet purchased at fair value at 22 big ones, $22 billion. And they say that this is the highlighted section that represents securities sold but not yet purchased at fair value. This is a liability. What does that mean?
So I think in order to understand that, we need to understand what fair value is. And the definition for fair value, according to that exact, note to statement of financial condition, is it is the market value of the stock. So their liabilities, for instance, if they sold short for that total, what was the number again? $22 billion, something like that?
Yeah, 22 big ones.
Let's say that they sold that 22 big ones at $5. They went short at $5. Well, now the stock is trading at $11, right? No, that tells you that that number is skewed. In fact, I would imagine that that liability is incredibly higher. They're going to owe a lot more money than that. In fact, 100% more than that. Because as we know, a short position has infinite losses. If you go from $5 to $11, double that number. And that's if they shorted at $5. We know that Citadel and Melvin and any hedge fund that went short on these stocks has likely been shorting these for years. For at least 2 years, a year and a half, a year, right? So they've probably added their position at $5, $4, $3, $2. I mean, there was a point in time which AMC was trading at what, $1.50, something like that. Let me just look at the 5-year chart on this. The lowest point was $1.91. So $2, you know what I mean? And the downside for them is immense. I would imagine once they release that new liability, unless they lie, in which case they can get busted on that and then fined even more. But we know that they would lie anyways with their 58, violations of regulation according to FINRA. They're going to get busted, and it's going to come to the limelight. People are going to know, and they can't hide it. They can't say we covered our short positions. Everybody will be able to see it, and now that people have their eyes on it, it's going to be nuts. I got to keep my glasses on. I get so hyped up, man.
All good, but so let's make it clear. Melvin had in his testimony, Mr. Hedge Fund. Mr. Hedge Fund. So Gabe Plotkin said that he had covered all of his short positions, right? That he's completely out of the situation back in February's congressional hearing. Right. Did he lie already about that?
I think it's very possible, man. I mean, I tell you what, when I was watching that hearing, I didn't watch the whole 8 hours or whatever the heck that was, but I did see that part. And it looked to me like he was just reading a freaking document. Like he was just reading the screen in front of him. He knew exactly what he had to say to cover his butt. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think the same thing happened with him, with Mr. Bulgarian boy, right? They know exactly what they were doing. They were dodging. They only answered absolutely what they had to. And if he was telling the truth, I just don't see that being the case, man. I mean, the numbers tell you exactly what they are. The only way that I could see him not lying is if he covered his position, then you had some other hedge fund that didn't learn their lesson from what just happened and then doubled down and established a position just as large or bigger than that previous short position. Do you think that's the case? Because I do not. I don't see that being possible.
Yeah, we were even talking about mitigation tactics that they could do, and I'm glad that we're talking about the 4D chess tactics because we need to understand exactly what they have in store as well.